How could one night out turn my whole marriage upside down? I thought it was harmless fun until the next morning, when I came home to a stack of legal documents on the kitchen table and realized my husband wasn't playing games anymore. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The mirror in our bedroom reflected back a woman I barely recognized anymore. At 31, I should have felt confident, beautiful, alive. Instead, I felt trapped in a life that had become as predictable as Evan's morning coffee routine. The black dress I'd hidden in my work bag for weeks finally had its moment. Tonight was going to be different. "Where exactly are you going dressed like that?" Evan's voice cut through my thoughts as he appeared in the doorway. His accountant's tie loosened after another mundane day at the office. I smoothed the fabric over my hips, admiring how it hugged my curves. "Out with the girls. Maya's been planning this for weeks. You know how she gets when I cancel." Maya. The way he said my sister's name carried years of disapproval. The same Maya who thinks marriage is a prison sentence and husbands are just obstacles to fun. "Don't be dramatic, Evan. It's one night out. When's the last time I did anything for myself?" I grabbed my purse, checking that my phone was charged. Tonight was going to be documented. I wanted proof that I was still young, still desirable, still worth looking at. Evan sat heavily on our bed, the same bed where we'd made love exactly twice in the past month. "Ysoria, I'm not trying to control you. I'm worried. You've been different lately. Distant. And now you're going clubbing dressed like..." "Like what? Like a woman who takes care of herself? Like someone who doesn't just live in yoga pants and oversized sweaters?" The anger in my voice surprised even me. "Maybe if you paid half as much attention to me as you do to your spreadsheets, I wouldn't need to go out to feel attractive." His face fell, and for a moment I almost felt guilty. Almost. But then I remembered the last time he'd complimented me, the last time he'd looked at me like I was anything more than the mother of his child and the person who split the mortgage payment. "Mummy, you look pretty." 7-year-old Lily bounced into the room, her gap-toothed smile lighting up her face. "Are you going to a party?" "Something like that, sweetheart." I knelt down to hug her, breathing in that little girl scent of strawberry shampoo and innocence. "Be good for Daddy, okay?" "I'm always good," she giggled, then whispered conspiratorially, "Daddy looks sad. Did you guys have a fight?" Kids noticed everything. "No, baby. Daddy's just tired from work. I'll be home later, and everything will be fine." But as I stood up, I caught Evan's reflection in the mirror. He was holding his phone, and the screen showed something that made my stomach clench. A tracking app. Our family plan included location sharing, something we'd set up years ago for safety. I'd forgotten all about it. "Have fun," he said quietly, not looking up from his phone. "Be safe." The words felt loaded with meaning I didn't want to examine. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, my heels clicking against the hardwood floors, like a countdown timer. Maya was already waiting in her car outside, music thumping loud enough to rattle windows. At 28, she had the kind of freedom I envied. No husband, no kids, no responsibilities beyond her job at the marketing firm and her weekend adventures. "Finally." "I was starting to think Evan had chained you to the stove," she laughed as I slid into the passenger seat. "You look incredible. He should be thanking me for reminding him what a catch his wife is." "He doesn't see it that way." I buckled my seatbelt, already feeling lighter as we pulled away from the house. "He thinks you're a bad influence." "Good. Someone needs to remind you that you're not dead yet. Marriage doesn't mean you have to become invisible." Maya turned up the music, and I felt my phone buzz with a text from Evan. "Please just be careful tonight. I love you." I stared at the message for a long moment, then turned off my phone and dropped it in my purse. Tonight wasn't about being careful. Tonight was about remembering who I used to be before I became Mrs. Evan Vane. before I became Lily's mum, before I became another face in the HR department at a company that barely knew my name. The club was already packed when we arrived, bodies moving to music that thrummed through the floor and into my bones. The lights were low, strobing across faces I didn't recognize, and for the first time in months, I felt anonymous, free. "First round's on me," Maya shouted over the music, steering me toward the bar. "We're celebrating your jailbreak." The bartender was exactly the kind of man I would have flirted with back in college. Tall, dark hair that looked deliberately messy, arms that suggested he did more than just pour drinks in his spare time. His name tag read Marcus, and when he smiled at me while mixing our cocktails, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the thrill of being noticed by a stranger. "First time here?" he asked, sliding a Cosmopolitan across the bar. His eyes lingered on my face, then traveled down to the low neckline of my dress. "First time out in a while," I replied, accepting the drink and letting my fingers brush his. "I'm Ysoria." "Marcus, and that's a beautiful name for a beautiful woman." The line was cheesy, but delivered with enough confidence to make my cheeks warm. "You here celebrating something special?" Maya appeared at my elbow, grinning like she'd won the lottery. "She's celebrating her freedom. Married life has been keeping this gorgeous creature locked away." I wanted to kick her under the bar, but Marcus's smile only widened. "Married, huh? Lucky guy. He must be crazy to let you out of his sight looking like that." The compliment hit exactly where I needed it most. When was the last time Evan had called me gorgeous? When was the last time he'd looked at me like Marcus was looking at me right now? Like I was something worth pursuing, worth impressing? "He's working late," I lied smoothly, taking a long sip of my drink. "Always working." "His loss is my gain, then." Marcus leaned closer, and I caught a hint of cologne mixed with something uniquely masculine. "Save me a dance later." Before I could answer, Maya was dragging me onto the dance floor. The alcohol was already warming my blood, loosening the tight knots of responsibility and guilt that had been my constant companions for so long. "Did you see the way he was looking at you?" Maya shouted in my ear as we moved to the music. "When's the last time Evan looked at you like that?" "Never," I realized with a pang that was equal parts sadness and anger. Even when we were dating, Evan had been reserved, practical. He'd fallen in love with my stability, my reliability. He'd never looked at me like I was something to be devoured. The music shifted to something slower, more sensual, and I felt hands on my waist. I turned to find Marcus behind me, his body warm against my back as we moved together. This was dangerous territory, but the alcohol and the music and the way he whispered, "You're incredible," in my ear, made it impossible to care. My phone buzzed in my purse, then again. I ignored it, lost in the feeling of being desired, of being the center of someone's attention. Marcus's hands were respectful but possessive, guiding my movements, making me feel like the most beautiful woman in the room. "Your husband's a fool," he murmured against my ear, his breath sending shivers down my spine. "Don't talk about my husband," I replied, but there was no conviction in it. Right now, Evan felt like a character from someone else's life. We danced through 3 songs, our bodies pressed together in ways that would have scandalized my mother and sent Evan's mother into cardiac arrest. I didn't care. For the first time in years, I felt alive, electric, wanted. Maya appeared with her phone raised, snapping pictures. "You two look amazing together. This is going straight to Instagram." "Maya, no," I started, but she was already typing, tagging me in photos that showed Marcus and me wrapped around each other like lovers instead of strangers. "Relax, live a little, let everyone see how gorgeous you look." She winked and disappeared back into the crowd, leaving me alone with Marcus, and a growing sense that I was crossing lines I couldn't uncross. "She's right, you know," Marcus said, spinning me around so I was facing him. "You're absolutely stunning. Your husband should worship the ground you walk on." The compliments were like water to someone dying of thirst, I leaned into him, letting myself imagine what it would be like to be with someone who saw me this way, who made me feel this way. He used to, I said, surprised by my own honesty. When we first met, he couldn't keep his hands off me. Now he barely looks up from his laptop. Then he's an idiot. Marcus's hand cupped my face, thumb brushing across my cheek. A woman like you should never be ignored. The moment stretched between us, loaded with possibility. I knew I should step back, should remember my wedding ring, should think about Lily sleeping safely at home. Instead, I moved closer. My phone rang, cutting through the music and the moment like a knife. Evan's name flashed on the screen, and reality crashed back over me like ice water. I started, but Marcus shook his head. Don't. Not tonight. Tonight is about you. He took my phone gently and turned it off, sliding it back into my purse. Dance with me. And I did. I danced like I was single, like I had no responsibilities, like there wouldn't be consequences. I let Marcus hold me, touch me, whisper things in my ear that made me feel like a goddess instead of a tired wife and mother. I didn't see Maya's co-worker in the corner, phone raised, recording everything. I didn't think about the location tracking on my phone, or the fact that I'd posted to social media, or that in a few hours my entire world would come crashing down. All I knew was that for one perfect night, I felt beautiful again. The harsh fluorescent lights of the HR office felt like punishment after the dim intimacy of the club. My head pounded with every keystroke, and the black dress that had made me feel so powerful 12 hours ago was now wrinkled and inappropriate under the unforgiving office lighting. Well, look who's doing the walk of shame this morning. Jennifer from payroll appeared at my cubicle with a coffee and a smirk that made my stomach turn. Girl, you were all over social media last night. That was quite a show. My blood turned to ice. What are you talking about? Oh, honey, you don't know. Jennifer's eyes lit up with the kind of malicious glee that made office gossip so dangerous. Check your phone. You're famous. With trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone and turned it on. The notifications hit like a tsunami. Missed calls from Evan, texts from numbers I didn't recognize, and dozens of social media alerts. The video was everywhere. Maya had posted it to her Instagram story, but someone had screen recorded it and shared it across multiple platforms. There I was, wrapped around Marcus like we were lovers, his hands on my body, my face tilted up toward his with an expression of pure desire. The caption made it worse. When you remember you're still hot. Married life, just a girl's night, will living my best life. Jesus Christ, I whispered, scrolling through the comments. Most were supportive, friends cheering me on, telling me I looked amazing, that I deserved to have fun. But scattered throughout were the ones that made my hands shake. Isn't she married? Where's her husband? This is why I don't trust married women at clubs. And then, the one that made my world stop spinning. Her husband just got tagged in this. Awkward. I clicked through to see that someone had indeed tagged Evan in the video. Not just tagged him, they'd sent it directly to him with the message. Thought you should see what your wife was up to last night. My phone rang. Evan's name on the screen felt like a death sentence. Hey, I answered, trying to sound casual despite the panic clawing at my chest. We need to talk. His voice was calm, controlled, which somehow made it more terrifying than if he'd been screaming. When you get home. Evan, I can explain. I'm sure you can. You're very good at explaining things. The line went dead. Jennifer was still hovering, pretending to organize files while obviously eavesdropping. Trouble in paradise? It's not what it looks like, I said automatically, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. Honey, it looks like you were about to have intimacy with that bartender on the dance floor. What exactly were you going for? The rest of the morning passed in a blur of whispered conversations and sideways glances. By lunch, everyone in the office had seen the video. Some were supportive, telling me I looked great, and that Evan should be proud to have such a beautiful wife. Others were less kind, suggesting that maybe I should have thought about my family before putting on such a display. My phone buzzed constantly. Maya, trying to defend her decision to post the video. My mother, asking what was going on because Diane Vane had called her, furious. Friends wanting details. And through it all, nothing from Evan. At 2 p.m., I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Your husband was just here at the bar asking questions about you. Thought you should know. Marcus. My heart stopped. Evan never confronted anyone. He was passive, conflict avoidant, the kind of man who would rather suffer in silence than make a scene. If he was actively seeking out Marcus, things were worse than I'd imagined. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried texting, but the messages showed as delivered but not read. For the first time in our 8-year marriage, my husband was ignoring me completely. The afternoon crawled by with agonizing slowness. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was Evan. Instead, it was a parade of family members, friends, and acquaintances who had seen the video and wanted to weigh in on my marriage, my choices, my life. Maya called around 4 p.m., her voice defensive and slightly slurred. Everyone's acting like you committed murder. You danced with a guy. Big deal. Evan needs to get over himself. Maya, everyone can see the video. I look like I'm about to cheat on my husband. So, you didn't actually cheat. You just reminded everyone, including Evan, that you're a desirable woman. Maybe now he'll appreciate what he has. But as I hung up and gathered my things to leave work, I had a sinking feeling that appreciation was the last thing on Evan's mind. The drive home felt like a funeral procession. Every red light gave me more time to think about what I was going to say, how I was going to explain that it had all been innocent fun, that nothing had really happened. But as I pulled into our driveway and saw Evan's car already there, he never left work early, I realized that explanations might not be enough. The house was too quiet when I walked in. No sounds from the kitchen, no TV in the living room, no Lily's chatter, just silence that felt heavy with judgment. Evan, I called out, setting my purse on the counter. In here. His voice came from the dining room, flat and emotionless. I found him sitting at our dining table, laptop open, papers spread out in neat piles. He was still wearing his work clothes, but his tie was gone and his sleeves were rolled up like he'd been working for hours. Where's Lily? At my parents'. I picked her up from school early. He didn't look up from whatever he was reading. I thought we should have this conversation privately. The formal tone, the careful preparation, the way he'd arranged to have our daughter out of the house. This wasn't going to be the kind of fight where we yelled and then made up in bed. This felt like something much more serious. Evan, about last night. Sit down, Ysoria. He finally looked up, and the expression in his eyes made my knees weak. It wasn't anger, exactly. It was something colder, more final. We have a lot to discuss. I sat across from my husband at the dining table where we'd shared thousands of meals, helped Lily with homework, and planned our life together. Now it felt like a courtroom, with Evan as both judge and prosecutor. I've been doing some thinking today, he began, his voice steady and controlled. Actually, I've been doing more than thinking. I've been investigating. Investigating. The word came out as a croak. Evan, what are you talking about? He turned his laptop around so I could see the screen. It was a timeline, detailed, color-coded, with timestamps and screenshots. My social media posts, location data from my phone, credit card transactions, even photos from the club that I hadn't known existed. Did you know that when you use our joint credit card, I get notifications? He pointed to an entry marked 11:47 p.m. $43 at Pulse nightclub. You told me you were going to dinner with Maya. My mouth went dry. We did go to dinner first. At 6 p.m., then you went to 3 different bars before ending up at Pulse, where you spent 4 hours drinking and dancing with Marcus Leto. He said the name like it tasted bad. Yes, I know his name. I know where he works, where he lives, and that this isn't the first time he's been involved with married women. Nothing happened, Evan. We just danced. He clicked to the next screen, a collection of photos and videos from the club. Not just Maya's posts, but pictures taken by other people, shared in group chats, posted on various social media platforms. In every single one, I looked like a woman on the verge of an affair. This is what just dancing looks like to you? He clicked through image after image. His hands on your ass, your face buried in his neck, the two of you grinding against each other like teenagers. You're making it sound worse than it was. Am I? He pulled up another screen, our phone records. You turned off your phone at 9:23 p.m., right after I called to check on you. You didn't turn it back on until 2:15 a.m. What exactly were you doing for 5 hours that you couldn't answer your husband's calls? The evidence was overwhelming, presented with the same methodical precision Evan brought to his accounting work. I felt like a criminal being confronted with proof of my crimes. I needed one night to feel good about myself, I said, hating how defensive I sounded. One night to remember that I'm more than just your wife and Lily's mother. By humiliating me in front of everyone we know. His calm facade cracked slightly, revealing the hurt underneath. Do you have any idea what today has been like for me? The looks from my coworkers, the calls from my parents, the messages from people sending me videos of my wife acting like she's single. I never meant for anyone to see, but they did see. Everyone saw. And now I have to decide what to do about it. He closed the laptop and leaned back in his chair. I've been married to you for 8 years, Ysoria. I thought I knew who you were. You do know who I am. Last night doesn't change that. Doesn't it? Because the woman I married would never have done this. She would never have embarrassed her family, disrespected her marriage, or put herself in a position where strangers on the internet are debating whether she's cheating on her husband. The words hit like physical blows. I'm still the same person. No, you're not. You're someone who lies about where she's going, turns off her phone to avoid her husband, and grinds on strangers in public. You're someone who listens to her sister's toxic advice instead of working on her marriage. You're someone who would rather seek attention from random men than talk to me about what's wrong. What's wrong is that you don't see me anymore. The words exploded out of me, months of resentment finally finding their voice. When's the last time you told me I was beautiful? When's the last time you looked at me the way Marcus looked at me last night? Marcus, he said the name again, and this time there was real anger in it. You're comparing me to a bartender who hits on married women for sport. I'm comparing you to a man who made me feel desirable for the first time in years. By treating you like a piece of meat he wanted to sleep with. The crude language from my usually reserved husband shocked me into silence. You think that's what you were missing? Some stranger grabbing your ass and telling you you're hot. You think that's more valuable than 8 years of marriage, a home, a daughter who adores you. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. You traded your dignity and our family's reputation for a few hours of attention from a man who's probably already forgotten your name. He was right, and that made it worse. Marcus had texted me once today to warn me that Evan had come to the bar, not to ask how I was, not to suggest we meet again. Just a courtesy heads up from someone who'd already moved on to the next lonely wife. I made a mistake, I said quietly. I'm sorry. Are you? Or are you just sorry you got caught? The question hung in the air between us. I wanted to say I was genuinely sorry, that I regretted everything, that I'd do anything to take it back. But the truth was more complicated. I was sorry about the consequences, sorry about the embarrassment, sorry about hurting Evan. But I wasn't entirely sorry about feeling beautiful and desired, even if it had been an illusion. I don't know, I admitted. He nodded like he'd expected that answer. That's what I thought, and that's why I made some calls today. What kind of calls? He reached into a folder I hadn't noticed before and pulled out a business card. I have an appointment tomorrow morning with a divorce attorney. The words hit me like a physical blow. Evan, no. We can work through this. It was one night that showed me who you really are. One night that made me realize I've been married to someone I don't actually know. He stood up, suddenly looking older than his 34 years. I'm staying at my parents' house tonight. You can explain to Lily why Daddy doesn't live here anymore. You can't be serious. You're going to destroy our family over one mistake. I'm not destroying anything, Ysoria. You already did that. He gathered his papers and closed his laptop. My lawyer will be in touch. As he walked toward the door, I felt our life together slipping away like sand through my fingers. Evan, please, I love you. He paused at the doorway and looked back at me. If this is what you call love, then we have very different definitions of the word. The front door closed behind him with a quiet click that sounded like the end of everything I'd built my adult life around. I sat alone at the dining table, surrounded by the evidence of my marriage's destruction, and wondered how one night of feeling beautiful could have cost me everything. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of lawyers, family meetings, and increasingly hostile phone calls. What had started as a private marital crisis had exploded into a full-scale family war, with battle lines drawn and loyalties tested. Maya had appointed herself as my chief defender, rallying our mutual friends and painting Evan as a controlling husband who couldn't handle his wife having a little fun. She organized coffee dates that felt more like war councils, where our circle of friends dissected every aspect of my marriage and found it wanting. He's being completely unreasonable, declared Sarah, one of Maya's co-workers who'd become a regular at these gatherings. So what if you danced with another guy? You didn't sleep with him. You didn't even kiss him. He's acting like you had an affair. Exactly, Maya chimed in, stirring her latte aggressively. This is about control. He can't stand that Ysoria reminded everyone, including herself, that she's an independent woman with her own desires. The support felt good, but it was complicated by the growing realization that not everyone saw things the same way. Several of our couple friends had quietly distanced themselves, declining invitations and failing to return calls. The ones who did respond were increasingly divided into camps. I have to be honest, said Rebecca, a friend from Lily's school who'd known us for years. If my husband did what you did, I'd be devastated. The humiliation alone. But she didn't actually do anything wrong, Maya shot back. Dancing isn't cheating. It's not about the dancing, it's about the intention. Look at those photos. She looks like she's about to leave with that guy. The conversation devolved into the same arguments we'd been having for weeks. My supporters insisted I'd done nothing wrong, that Evan was overreacting, that marriage shouldn't mean the death of individual identity. My critics argued that I'd crossed a line, that public humiliation was a form of betrayal, that I'd damaged my family's reputation irreparably. Through it all, Evan remained conspicuously absent from the social battlefield. He'd moved in with his parents temporarily and was handling everything through his lawyer. The few times we'd spoken, usually about Lily's schedule or household logistics, he'd been polite but distant, like I was a business associate rather than his wife. The custody arrangement was the hardest part. Lily spent weekdays with me and weekends with Evan, but the transitions were awkward and tense. Our 7-year-old daughter wasn't stupid. She knew something was seriously wrong, even if she didn't understand the details. Why doesn't Daddy live here anymore? She asked one evening as I tucked her into bed. Daddy and I are having some grown-up problems, I said, the words feeling inadequate. But we both love you very much. Did you have a fight? Something like that. Was it because of the dancing? My blood ran cold. What do you know about dancing, sweetheart? I heard Grandma Diane talking to Grandpa Paul. She said you were dancing with a man who wasn't Daddy, and that's why he's sad. The fact that our marital problems had filtered down to our child made me feel sick with shame. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, Lily. I made a mistake, and now Daddy and I have to figure out how to fix it. Can't you just say you're sorry? I did say I'm sorry. But sometimes sorry isn't enough. She was quiet for a long moment, then asked the question that broke my heart. Are you and Daddy going to get divorced like Tommy's parents? I didn't have an answer that wouldn't terrify her or give her false hope. I don't know, baby, but no matter what happens, we'll always be your parents, and we'll always love you. The conversation with Lily crystallized something that had been nagging at me for weeks. In all the debates about my rights and Evan's reaction, and who was wrong and who was right, we'd lost sight of the most important casualty, our daughter's sense of security and family stability. That realization led to the most difficult conversation I'd had since this whole mess started. I called Evan and asked to meet, not with lawyers, not with family members offering unwanted advice, just the two of us. We met at a coffee shop halfway between his parents' house and our home. He looked tired, older somehow, but also more composed than I'd seen him since the night of the club incident. Thank you for meeting me, I said, settling into the chair across from him. You said it was about Lily. It is. She's asking questions, Evan. She knows something's wrong, and she's scared. His jaw tightened. What kind of questions? About divorce, about why you don't live with us anymore, about the dancing. I watched his face change at that last word. Your mother discussed this in front of her. My mother is protective of her son and granddaughter. Can you blame her? I'm not blaming anyone. I'm trying to figure out how to minimize the damage to our daughter. The damage was done the night you decided to act single in front of half the city. There was the anger I'd been expecting, finally breaking through his controlled facade. You're right, I said, and his eyebrows rose in surprise. I made a terrible decision. I humiliated you, embarrassed our family, and set a horrible example for Lily. I was selfish and stupid and completely wrong. He studied my face, looking for signs of manipulation or insincerity. What's your point? My point is that I can't undo it. I can't take back the photos or the videos or the gossip. I can't make people forget what they saw. But maybe we can figure out a way forward that doesn't destroy our daughter's childhood. What are you suggesting? I don't know. Counseling? A trial separation instead of divorce? Some way to rebuild trust without blowing up everything we've built together? For a moment, I thought I saw something soften in his expression. Then he shook his head. Ysoria, I've spent 3 weeks thinking about this. I've replayed our entire marriage, looking for signs I missed, trying to understand how we got here. And what I keep coming back to is that you made a choice that night. You chose to prioritize your own desires over our family. You chose to seek validation from a stranger instead of working on our marriage. You chose to lie to me and then turn off your phone so you couldn't be reached. I know. Let me finish. Those weren't impulsive decisions made in the heat of the moment. They were calculated choices that revealed something fundamental about your character and your priorities. And I can't unknow what I know now. The finality in his voice made my chest tight with panic. So that's it? 8 years of marriage, and you're just giving up? I'm not giving up. I'm accepting reality. We want different things, Ysoria. You want to feel young and desired and free. I want a partner who chooses our family over her own ego. Those aren't compatible goals. They could be if we work together. No, they can't. Because the fundamental issue isn't that you danced with another man. It's that you don't think you did anything wrong. He was right, and we both knew it. Even now, sitting across from him and seeing the pain in his eyes, part of me still felt justified in seeking the attention and validation I'd been missing. Part of me still blamed him for not making me feel the way Marcus had made me feel that night. What happens now? I asked. Now we figure out how to co-parent Lily while living separate lives. My lawyer will send you the divorce papers next week. As he stood to leave, I made one last desperate attempt. Evan, please, don't let one mistake destroy everything we built together. He paused, his hand on the back of his chair. It wasn't one mistake, Ysoria. It was a series of choices that showed me who you really are. And I can't be married to that person. The coffee shop door closed behind him, and I sat alone with the wreckage of my marriage and the growing realization that some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a courier who looked apologetic as he handed me the thick manila envelope. I signed for them with shaking hands, knowing that opening them would make everything official, final, real. Inside were documents that reduced 8 years of marriage to legal terminology and asset division. Evan was asking for joint custody of Lily, half of our savings, and his name removed from the mortgage. He was also requesting that I cover my own legal fees and return the engagement ring his grandmother had given him. But it was the last page that made my blood run cold, a detailed accounting of what he called reputational damages caused by my behavior. He'd documented every social media post, every photo, every comment and share. He'd calculated the impact on his professional reputation, including a client who'd made jokes about his party wife during a business meeting. The message was clear. This wasn't just about ending our marriage. This was about holding me accountable for the public humiliation I'd caused. Maya's reaction was predictably explosive. He's trying to financially punish you for having a life. This is abuse, Ysoria, economic abuse. But when I showed the papers to my own lawyer, her assessment was more sobering. He's been very thorough, she said, flipping through the documentation. And unfortunately, he's got a strong case. The social media evidence alone shows a pattern of behavior that could be construed as marital misconduct. But I didn't actually cheat. No, but you created a public spectacle that damaged your family's reputation. In some states, that's grounds for fault-based divorce, which can impact asset division and alimony. The legal reality was harsh. My night of feeling beautiful and desired was going to cost me far more than I'd imagined. The final confrontation came 3 weeks later, at what was supposed to be a routine custody exchange. Evan arrived to pick up Lily for his weekend, but instead of his usual polite distance, he seemed agitated, angry in a way I hadn't seen since the night he'd first confronted me with the evidence. "We need to talk," he said, his voice tight with controlled fury. "About what?" "About the fact that you're still in contact with Marcus." My stomach dropped. "I'm not. Don't lie to me, not anymore." He pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. It was a message thread between Marcus and me, including texts I'd sent just 2 days ago. The messages were innocent enough. He'd reached out to ask how I was doing, and I'd responded politely. But seeing them displayed on Evan's phone, I realized how they must look to my soon-to-be ex-husband. "How did you get those?" "Does it matter? The point is that you're still in contact with the man who helped destroy our marriage." "He didn't destroy anything. I did that all by myself." "By continuing to talk to him, you're showing me that you learned nothing from this experience. You're showing me that you don't actually regret what happened." He was right, and that made me angry. "What do you want me to say, Evan? That I'll never speak to another man again? That I'll wear a scarlet letter for the rest of my life?" "I want you to show some remorse. I want you to acknowledge that your actions had consequences beyond your own feelings." "I have acknowledged that." "No, you've acknowledged that you got caught. There's a difference." The argument escalated quickly, 8 years of unspoken resentments, and recent wounds colliding in our driveway. Neighbors began to peek out of windows, and I realized we were creating another public spectacle. "Let's go inside," I said, but Evan shook his head. "No, I'm done pretending we can work this out. I'm done pretending you're sorry. And I'm done protecting you from the consequences of your choices." "What's that supposed to mean?" He reached into his car and pulled out another manila envelope. "It means I'm filing for full custody of Lily." The words hit me like a physical blow. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life. You've shown that you prioritize your own desires over your family's well-being. You've demonstrated poor judgment and a lack of respect for the commitments you've made. And now you're maintaining contact with the man who helped you humiliate your daughter's father." A judge will never give you full custody based on one night of dancing, based on one night of public infidelity, ongoing contact with your affair partner, and a pattern of behavior that prioritizes personal gratification over family stability. His voice was calm again, which somehow made his words more terrifying. I've been documenting everything, Ysoria. Every late night out, every inappropriate social media post, every time you've put your own desires ahead of Lily's needs. I'm a good mother. You're a selfish woman who happens to have a child. There's a difference. The accusation was so harsh, so final, that it took my breath away. But before I could respond, Lily appeared in the doorway, her overnight bag in hand, and confusion written across her face. "Are you and Mommy fighting again?" she asked Evan, her voice small and scared. The sight of our daughter, caught between her warring parents, forced to witness another argument about her mother's failures, broke something inside me. This wasn't about my marriage anymore, or my mistakes, or even my relationship with Evan. This was about a little girl who deserved better than parents who used her as a weapon against each other. "No, sweetheart," I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Daddy and I were just discussing grown-up things. Go get in the car." As Lily climbed into Evan's back seat, he turned back to me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, but something colder and more final. "My lawyer will file the custody motion on Monday. You'll want to get a very good attorney, because I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of mother you are." He drove away, taking our daughter and leaving me standing alone in the driveway, finally understanding that there would be no redemption, no second chances, no way back from the choices I'd made. The beautiful, desired woman I'd felt like for one night at the club was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized, a soon-to-be divorced single mother, fighting for the right to see her own child, all because I'd wanted to feel young and attractive for a few hours. As I walked back into the empty house that would soon no longer be mine, I realized that the price of that one night of validation was going to be everything I'd actually valued in my life. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Evan got joint custody, half our assets, and his reputation intact. I got a studio apartment, supervised visitation until I could prove I'd addressed my behavioral issues, and a community that would forever remember me as the married woman who danced like she was single. Marcus never called again after that first week. Maya eventually stopped organizing coffee dates to discuss my situation. My mother still blamed Evan, but even her support felt hollow and obligatory. The only person who mattered, Lily, adapted to her new reality with the resilience of childhood, splitting her time between her father's stable, quiet home and her mother's small apartment, where I tried to rebuild a life from the wreckage of my choices. Sometimes, late at night, I'd remember how it felt to be beautiful and desired and free, but those memories were always followed by the image of legal documents, custody schedules, and a little girl asking why Daddy didn't live with us anymore. I'd wanted one night to feel like myself again. Instead, I'd discovered that the self I'd been trying to reclaim was someone I could no longer afford to be.